Imagine the sheer, breathtaking force of a hurricane at your command, the ability to calm a churning ocean with a gesture, or to call lightning from a clear blue sky. This is not the stuff of modern science fiction, but the very essence of ancient legends that have echoed across continents for thousands of years. What if you could hold a tool of such immense power that the very weather bowed to your will? Across every corner of the globe, our ancestors told stories of mythic weapons that could command storms, oceans, and the untamed forces of nature. These were not mere instruments of battle, but profound symbols of our deepest fears and highest aspirations, reflecting a time when the line between the divine and the natural world was beautifully, terrifyingly thin. These artifacts represent humanity's oldest and most persistent dream, the desire to understand and perhaps even influence the unpredictable world around us, a dream that continues to captivate us today. Today, we embark on an extraordinary journey to explore 20 of these legendary weapons, from the thunderous hammer of Norse gods to the trident that ruled the Mediterranean seas. Each one is a key, unlocking a unique cultural perspective and a story that has shaped civilizations. We will discover how the divine trident of Poseidon was not just a tool of destruction, but also a creator of springs and a gift to humanity. We will see how a sacred Japanese sword could tame fierce winds, and how a god's noose could bind both criminals and the very monsoons themselves. These are not just tales of might, but narratives rich with meaning, teaching lessons about justice, balance, and the immense respect our ancestors had for the environment. They revered the power they sought to command, understanding that with such control came a profound responsibility, a theme that resonates deeply in our modern conversations about climate and our place in the natural order. As we travel from the frozen realms of the Norse to the vibrant islands of Polynesia, from the deserts of ancient Egypt to the deep forests of the Celts, we will uncover the universal threads that connect these diverse myths. This exploration is more than a list of fantastical items. It is an invitation to see the world through the eyes of those who came before us, to understand how they made sense of thunderstorms, droughts, and fertile rains. These stories have inspired epic poems, grand works of art, and continue to fuel our imagination in books and films. So, settle in and prepare to delve into the incredible tales of these 20 mythic weapons, legendary tools said to command the forces of nature. Together, we will discover how these ancient symbols of power continue to speak to us, reminding us of the enduring human spirit and our timeless fascination with the awesome power of the world we inhabit. From the frozen, misty realms of Norse mythology comes a sound that echoes across the ages, the thunderous crack of Mjolnir, the Hammer of Thor. Forged by the incomparable skill of the dwarf brothers Brokkr and Sindri in the heart of a blazing furnace, this was no ordinary weapon. Its creation was a story of trickery and cosmic consequence, resulting in a short-handled hammer of such immense density that only the god of thunder himself, with the aid of his magical belt and iron gloves, could even hope to wield it. Yet Mjolnir's true power extended far beyond its ability to shatter mountains and strike down giants. It was a symbol of duality, a tool that embodied the two faces of the storm itself. With a mighty throw, Thor could summon cataclysmic lightning and summon gales that shook the world tree Yggdrasil, using this raw, destructive force to defend the home of the gods, Asgard, from the chaotic threats of the frost giants. In this role, Mjolnir was the ultimate weapon of protection, a bulwark against the forces of entropy that sought to return the cosmos to chaos. But the very same hammer that could unleash terrifying storms was also used in sacred ceremonies to bless marriages, consecrate newborn children, and hallow the ground for burial. It was a tool of fertility, believed to promote the growth of crops by calling upon the life-giving rains that followed the thunder. This dual purpose reveals a profound understanding held by the Norse people. They saw the storm not as a single malevolent event, but as a complex natural cycle. The same lightning that could set a forest ablaze also purified the air and fixed nitrogen into the soil, making it fertile. The same torrential rains that could cause floods were essential for survival. Mjolnir, therefore, was not just a weapon, it was a divine instrument of balance. Thor was not merely a destroyer, he was a protector of both the cosmic order and the earthly community, a god who wielded the awesome power of nature for both defense and blessing. This deep respect for the hammer's power is evident in the artifacts left behind. Small amulets in the shape of Mjolnir have been found throughout Scandinavia, often worn alongside Christian crosses, showing how this powerful symbol persisted even as beliefs evolved. People wore them for protection, for good fortune, and as a connection to the divine forces that governed their world. The myths themselves are filled with epic battles where Thor's hammer is the key to restoring equilibrium. In one famous tale, the giant Thrym steals Mjolnir and demands the goddess Freyja as his bride in exchange for its return. Thor, disguised as the bride, reclaims his hammer during the wedding feast and proceeds to defeat the giant, a story that humorously yet powerfully underscores the hammer's indispensable role in maintaining the proper order of the world. This legacy of the thunder god and his mighty hammer has proven incredibly enduring, seamlessly transitioning from ancient poetry to modern blockbusters. The image of Thor wielding Mjolnir is instantly recognizable around the globe, a testament to the timeless appeal of a hero who commands the elements. While contemporary portrayals in comics and films often emphasize the spectacular, destructive aspect of the hammer, they still carry an echo of its ancient symbolism, the idea of a power that is both terrifying and necessary, a force for justice that is deeply connected to the natural world. The roar of Mjolnir reminds us of a time when humanity looked upon the storm with a mixture of fear and reverence, seeing in its raw power a reflection of the gods themselves. And as the echoes of thunder fade, our journey takes us from the skies of the north to the sun-drenched seas of the Mediterranean, to another iconic weapon that held dominion over an entirely different elemental domain. While Thor's hammer ruled the tempests of the northern sky, the vast and unpredictable Mediterranean Sea bowed to a different kind of power, one held firmly in the grasp of the god who made the ocean his domain. Poseidon's trident is one of the most instantly recognizable symbols of the ancient world, a three-pronged spear that was far more than a simple weapon. In the hands of the Earth Shaker, this formidable instrument became a divine tool capable of channeling the raw, untamable energy of the natural world. With a single strike upon the waves, he could stir the ocean floor to birth monstrous tsunamis, or shatter the very bedrock of the earth to create new harbors and springs of fresh water. Yet with another gesture, he could calm the fiercest gale, providing safe passage to sailors who honored him. This duality captures the essence of the sea itself, a life-giving highway for trade and exploration that could, in an instant, become a terrifying and merciless grave. The trident's role extended far beyond displays of raw power, deeply embedded in the foundational stories of Greek culture. In the famous contest for the patronage of Athens, Poseidon struck the Acropolis rock with his trident, causing a magnificent saltwater spring to burst forth, demonstrating his ability to provide for a city. Though the goddess Athena's gift of the olive tree was deemed more valuable, the myth underscores the trident's creative potential. In another act of creation, Poseidon was said to have used his weapon to carve out coastlines and shape the rugged Greek islands, literally defining the landscape of the ancient world. Perhaps one of his most enduring gifts to humanity was the first horse, which he created by striking a patch of earth with the trident, a symbol of aristocratic power, mobility, and untamed spirit that mirrored the sea's own nature. For a civilization that lived by and from the sea, the trident was a powerful symbol of explanation and a means to rationalize the terrifying forces they faced daily. The sudden, inexplicable whirlpools, the earthquakes that devastated coastal towns, the seasonal storms that could wipe out entire fleets, these were not random events, but the direct actions of a potent and moody deity. The trident was the focus of that belief, a narrative tool that gave a face to the chaos. By attributing these phenomena to Poseidon's will, the ancient Greeks could attempt to negotiate with their environment through prayer, sacrifice, and ritual, seeking to appease the god and secure his favor. This was not just religion, it was a form of early science, a framework for understanding a world that was often brutal and unpredictable. The legacy of the trident flows powerfully into our modern era, remaining a universal symbol of maritime authority. You can see its shape echoed in the scepters of ocean deities from other cultures, in the tips of naval spears, and most notably, in the iconic emblem of the modern seafood restaurant. This enduring presence speaks to a deep, almost primal recognition of its meaning. It represents humanity's enduring fascination with and respect for the awesome power of the ocean. The trident reminds us that the sea is a realm of immense potential and profound danger, a frontier that gives life and just as easily takes it away. Our journey across the waves of mythology now carries us further east, to a land where the divine wind itself was believed to be commanded by the edge of a sacred blade. From the churning seas of Greece, we now journey to the mist-shrouded islands of Japan, where a blade of legendary power rests among the most sacred objects of the nation. Kusanagi note Tsurugi, the grass-cutting sword, offers a profoundly different perspective on what it means to command the elements. Unlike the overt and often wrathful displays of Poseidon's trident, Kusanagi's power is one of harmony and divine right, a tool that works with nature's will rather than attempting to dominate it. This sacred sword forms one of the three imperial regalia of Japan, symbols of the emperor's authority that are said to be passed down from the age of the gods themselves. Its very existence is a testament to the idea that true sovereignty is not just about ruling people, but about being in balance with the natural world. The sword's most famous demonstration of power is found in a thrilling tale of survival and divine intervention. The legend tells of Prince Yamato Takeru, a heroic but sometimes reckless figure who was trapped in a field by a treacherous warlord. The enemy set the dry grass ablaze, surrounding the prince with a raging fire that seemed certain to be his end. In this moment of desperation, Yamato Takeru drew the miraculous Kusanagi sword. Instead of using it to fight a person, he used its divine power to command the wind itself. With a mighty swing, he turned the very forces arrayed against him into his salvation, creating a great gust that swept the fire back upon his enemies, clearing the grass and saving his life. This story perfectly encapsulates the sword's nature. It does not create a storm from nothing, but rather redirects and harmonizes with the existing forces of nature, turning a destructive fire into a life-saving wind. The origin of Kusanagi is itself a myth of discovery and divine connection. It was found by the storm god Susanoo after he slayed a monstrous 8-headed serpent, Yamata no Orochi. Upon cutting open one of the beast's tails, his blade struck something impossibly hard, revealing the magnificent sword within, which he then presented to the sun goddess Amaterasu as a token of reconciliation. This birth from a serpent, a creature often associated with water and the underworld, ties the sword to the primal forces of the earth. Susanoo, a deity of storms and the sea, bequeathed a weapon that controls wind, creating a beautiful symmetry in the mythology. The sword is not merely a tool of war, but a symbol of peace forged from conflict, a gift from the gods that establishes order. To this day, Kusanagi remains a powerful national symbol, revered more as a sacred relic than a physical weapon. It is believed to be housed at the Atsuta Shrine in Nagoya, though it is never displayed to the public, its power and authenticity resting entirely on faith and tradition. Its value is ceremonial and spiritual, representing the emperor's divine right to rule and his role as a mediator between the people and the natural world. Scholars point out that this reflects a key difference in how Eastern and Western myths often perceive divine weapons. In many European traditions, such artifacts are tools for imposing will, while Kusanagi represents the responsibility to maintain harmony, a concept deeply rooted in Shinto beliefs that view spirits or kami in all natural phenomena. This blade is a promise of protection, a symbol that the rightful ruler has the wisdom to guide the nation in balance with the winds, the rains, and the very land itself. This profound link between ethical sovereignty and environmental stewardship leads us to another culture that wove morality and meteorology into the very fabric of its divine instruments. While the Japanese sword Kusanagi harmonizes with the wind, another ancient tradition presents a weapon that binds the very concepts of cosmic law and precipitation into a single, powerful artifact. In the vast and intricate tapestry of Hindu mythology, we encounter Varuna, a god of profound and multifaceted authority. He is not merely a lord of the oceans but the divine guardian of Rita, the cosmic order itself. His weapon of choice is not a blade or a hammer but a noose known as the pasha. This simple rope, often depicted coiled in his hand, is perhaps one of the most conceptually powerful arms we have yet encountered. It represents an unbreakable connection between moral law and the natural world, a tool that can equally ensnare a lying heart or command the life-giving monsoon rains. Varuna's dominion is all-encompassing. He watches over the celestial pathways of the sun and moon, the vast depths of the ocean, and the intricate workings of human conscience. His noose is the physical manifestation of this oversight. When a person breaks a solemn oath, commits a sinful act, or disrupts the social and cosmic harmony, Varuna's pasha is said to bind them, often manifesting as a sudden illness or a string of misfortune. This is not a punishment of pure wrath, but a corrective measure, a divine intervention meant to restore balance. The noose does not strangle, it restrains, giving the individual a chance to reflect and atone. In this sense, the weapon is a symbol of inescapable consequence, a reminder that every action, every word, is connected to the larger fabric of existence. This inseparable link between ethics and environment is most stunningly illustrated by the noose's power over water. In a land where the arrival of the seasonal monsoon dictates survival, Varuna's role as the regulator of rainfall cemented his importance in daily life. The pasha could be used to withhold the rains, bringing drought and hardship to a community that had fallen into disharmony and vice. Conversely, it could unleash the nourishing downpours upon a kingdom that upheld truth and righteousness. The weather was not a random occurrence but a direct reflection of collective morality. A good harvest was a sign of divine favor earned through virtuous living, while a famine might be a call to collective introspection. The noose, therefore, was not just a weapon of punishment but a tool of cultivation, binding the people to their responsibilities and the land to the heavens. The imagery of the noose powerfully conveys the idea of connection and inescapable natural law. Just as a rope ties two things together, Varuna's pasha binds human action to natural consequence, the earth to the sky, and the individual to the cosmos. It is a far more subtle and profound concept than a weapon designed solely for destruction. It speaks to a sophisticated worldview where the universe is an interconnected web of duty, law, and life, presided over by a deity who ensures its balance. By exploring Varuna's Noose, we see a weapon that is ultimately about preservation and order, a stark and philosophical contrast to the more direct storm-raising implements of other pantheons. This deep intertwining of the moral and the meteorological sets the stage for a weapon that is the very embodiment of raw, unadulterated celestial power. From the binding moral order of Varuna's Noose, we ascend to the very pinnacle of raw, untamed power in the Greek pantheon. High atop Mount Olympus, the king of the gods wields a weapon that is the very embodiment of celestial fury, Zeus's Thunderbolt. Forged in the volcanic depths of the earth by the mighty Cyclopes after their release from Tartarus, this was no ordinary armament. It was a gift of immeasurable power, a bundle of jagged lightning bolts that crackled with the energy of creation and destruction. With this divine instrument, Zeus did not merely influence the weather, he personified it. A single hurl from his hand could split the sky, ignite terrifying forest fires, or level the mountains of mortals who dared to defy him. This thunderbolt was the ultimate symbol of his hard-won supremacy, the tool that secured his place as ruler of the sky, while his brothers Poseidon and Hades commanded the sea and the underworld. Yet the thunderbolt was far more than a simple tool of domination or intimidation. In the hands of Zeus, it became the primary instrument of divine justice, a cosmic check against the hubris of both gods and mortals. The ancient Greeks saw in a sudden, violent thunderstorm not just a natural phenomenon, but a potent message from above. It was a dramatic, terrifying reminder that there were lines one simply did not cross. Myths are filled with tales of those who learned this lesson the hard way. The giant Typhus who sought to overthrow Olympus was buried under a mountain by a barrage of these fiery bolts. The arrogant Salmoneus, who foolishly imitated Zeus by dragging brass pots behind his chariot to mock thunder, was struck down without mercy for his impiety. These stories served a crucial cultural purpose, teaching that overstepping one's place in the natural and social order invited catastrophic consequence. The profound cultural impact of this weapon extended far beyond epic poetry and into the daily lives of ancient Greeks. Grand temples, like the magnificent temple of Zeus at Olympia, were erected in his honor, often on high ground where lightning was thought to strike most frequently. The site of Olympia itself was said to have been consecrated by Zeus when he hurled a thunderbolt to mark its sacred space. Priests and seers would carefully observe thunderstorms, interpreting the direction, frequency, and intensity of lightning strikes as complex omens from the god, guiding decisions of state and warfare. The mighty oak tree was sacred to Zeus precisely because it was so often struck by lightning. Its charred remains seen as a testament to the god's direct touch upon the earth. This deep reverence shows how the myth of the thunderbolt was not just a story, but a framework for understanding the unpredictable and often frightening power of the natural world, attributing its chaos to the will of a knowable, if stern, deity. Ultimately, Zeus's thunderbolt represents the dual nature of absolute authority, the power to protect and to punish, to create order through the threat of overwhelming force. It is the brilliant, blinding flash that illuminates the sky, followed by the booming shockwave that shakes the very ground. It is both a creative spark and an agent of utter annihilation. This weapon, more than any other, established a clear hierarchy in the Greek cosmos, a chain of command that stretched from the highest peak of Olympus down to the smallest mortal village. It taught that the forces of nature were not impersonal but were governed by a will that demanded respect. As we move from this ultimate symbol of sky-born order, we prepare to encounter a weapon born from a very different principle, one that embodies the chaotic and creative forces of the earth itself. While Zeus's thunderbolt represented a weapon of direct and overwhelming offensive power, the Aegis served as perhaps the most potent symbol of defensive and psychological warfare in the Greek pantheon. This was not a mere shield but a divine artifact of immense and terrifying presence, a goatskin cloak or breastplate often described as being rimmed with golden tassels that hissed like 100 serpents. Its most defining feature, however, was the horrifying visage of the Gorgon Medusa fixed squarely at its center, her eyes still holding the petrifying power of her curse. Forged by the god Hephaestus, the Aegis was primarily wielded by Zeus and his daughter Athena, though it channeled a different kind of storm. Where the Thunderbolt brought deafening noise and searing light, the Aegis invoked a tempest of pure primal fear. When Zeus would shake the Aegis from the heights of Mount Olympus, he did not just summon a simple squall. The skies would darken, and the artifact itself was said to generate its own violent weather, unleashing whirlwinds, thunderous roars, and devastating hailstorms upon the battlefield below, throwing enemy ranks into disarray and panic. The true power of the Aegis lay in this masterful fusion of the supernatural and the natural world. The terrifying face of Medusa was a supernatural weapon of intimidation, capable of literally freezing enemies in their tracks with terror, if not turning them to stone. This was then combined with its ability to manifest the very real, chaotic fury of a storm. For the ancient Greeks, this made perfect sense. A sudden, violent storm that appeared from a seemingly clear sky was as terrifying and inexplicable as facing a mythical monster. The Aegis personified this experience, giving a tangible, divine source to the unpredictable and frightening forces of nature. It was the ultimate representation of a god asserting control over both the physical and psychological landscapes of conflict. In Homer's Iliad, we see this power in action. The hero Diomedes is granted the right to carry the Aegis into battle, and its mere presence, flashing with an unearthly fire, is enough to send the Trojan hero Hector and his entire army into a panicked retreat. In another passage, Apollo himself uses the Aegis to protect the body of Hector, holding it over the fallen warrior like a divine umbrella, demonstrating its role as an instrument of supreme protection for those favored by the gods. Beyond its immediate battlefield applications, the Aegis carried deep cultural significance that extended far beyond the pages of myth. It became a powerful symbol of divine sanction and unassailable authority. The word Aegis itself evolved in meaning to signify protection, endorsement, or sponsorship from a powerful force, a usage we still employ today. The symbolism of the Aegis was so potent that it influenced real-world symbols of power for centuries. Some historians suggest that the iconic Gorgonean, the image of Medusa's head, was adopted on the shields and armor of Greek hoplites to channel a fraction of this terrifying protective power. Even the attire of ancient priests and leaders sometimes incorporated Aegis-like motifs to signify their connection to the divine and their role as protectors of their people. This artifact perfectly encapsulated the ancient Greek worldview, where the lines between weather, emotion, divinity, and warfare were beautifully and terrifyingly blurred. It was not just a tool for creating a storm, but was itself a conceptual storm, an embodiment of the chaotic, protective, and fearsome aspects of nature and divinity. From this multifaceted symbol of Olympic power, our journey takes a dramatic turn to the misty shores and enchanted islands of Celtic mythology, where a different kind of weapon wielded control over the elements, a sword that could command the very winds and compel a man to speak only truth. From the divine tumult of the Greek battlefield, we voyage now to the misty shores and enchanted realms of Celtic mythology, where sovereignty was not merely claimed through force but proven through truth and a mastery of the elements themselves. Here we encounter Fragarach the Answerer, a sword whose very name whispers of its profound power. Forged by the gods themselves and later wielded by heroic mortals, this was no ordinary blade. Its edge was said to be so impossibly keen that it could slice through any armor as if it were linen, and once drawn and held at a man's throat, it possessed a fearsome magical property. It compelled him to answer any question put to him with complete and utter honesty. There was no deception, no evasion possible under its cold, unyielding threat, making it the ultimate arbiter of disputes and a tool for revealing hidden truths. Yet its power extended far beyond the psychological realm of truth and lies. Fragarach was intrinsically tied to the very forces of nature, specifically the winds that swept across the Irish seas and mountains. It was said the blade could command these gales, summoning them to aid its wielder or to hinder an foe. This divine instrument was most famously associated with Manannán mac Lir, the great god of the sea and guardian of the otherworld, the Celtic realm of the divine. As a ruler of both the physical oceans and the mystical realms beyond, a weapon that could control the winds and compel truth was a perfect symbol of his authority. It represented a holistic power, one that understood that true command over nature required an understanding of deeper moral truths. This connection is vividly illustrated in the rich tapestry of Irish sagas, where the sword often appears at critical junctures to resolve conflicts and legitimize rulers. In these stories, the power to command the wind was not just a tactical advantage in battle, it was a clear sign of divine favor. A king who could calm a storm or summon a fair breeze to fill the sails of his ships was seen as being in harmony with the land and the cosmos itself. Fragarach, therefore, was less a simple weapon and more an instrument of cosmic order. It blended the physical combat of clashing steel with a higher, almost judicial function, ensuring that power was wielded by those who were truthful and rightful. This reflects a deep Celtic reverence for the spoken word, for the power of oaths and the sacred art of storytelling, where elemental magic and moral integrity were seen as two sides of the same coin. Through the legends of the Answerer, we see a culture that believed mastering the outer world began with mastering the inner truths of the heart, a concept that gives this mythic weapon its enduring and fascinating appeal. While a sword that compels truth offers one kind of power, a blade that draws its very essence from the natural world offers another entirely, and few blades are more iconic or more deeply misunderstood than Excalibur. Most know it as the symbol of King Arthur's divine right to rule, the sword in the stone that proved his lineage, but its older, deeper magic is often forgotten. A magic that ties it directly to the elemental forces of Britain itself. For Excalibur was not found in an anvil on a block of stone in every version of the tale. In its most ancient and powerful tellings, it was a gift from the very heart of nature, presented to Arthur by the Lady of the Lake, a mystical being who ruled over a watery realm that existed between the world of mortals and the world of spirits. This origin story is crucial. By receiving the sword from a guardian of a lake, Arthur was not just being given a weapon, he was entering into a sacred pact with the land itself. The Lady of the Lake represents the ancient pre-Christian sovereignty of Britain, a spirit of place who could bestow power but also demand respect. Excalibur, in this light, becomes more than a tool for battle, it becomes an instrument of balance. Its scabbard was said to be even more magical than the blade itself, possessing the power to prevent its bearer from losing any blood from his wounds, a clear symbol of protection and vitality drawn from the natural world. But its connections run even deeper into the elemental forces. Some medieval romances and later folk traditions attribute even more overt powers to Excalibur. It was said the blade could, when wielded with true purpose, summon or disperse great banks of mist, cloaking Arthur and his knights from their enemies or revealing hidden paths. Other stories suggest it had a connection to water divination, able to point to sources of fresh water or even to calm turbulent storms on the water, a vital skill for a king ruling an island nation. This evolves the myth from a simple story of political legitimacy into a narrative about environmental stewardship. The rightful king is not just the one who can win wars, but the one who exists in harmony with his domain, who can literally and figuratively calm the storms that threaten his people. This reflects a medieval ideal where chivalry was not just about courage in combat, but about a moral duty to protect and nurture the land and its inhabitants. Excalibur's myth adapted over centuries, absorbing these elements to speak to a culture that saw the wilderness not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a partner in the kingdom's destiny. It teaches that true power is not asserted against nature, but channeled through it, a lesson of balance that resonates just as strongly today as it did in the age of Camelot. But a pact with the mystical waters of a lake is only one way to wield elemental power. Across the world, in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, a different kind of artifact speaks to an even more direct and profound relationship between humanity and nature. Here we find a tool that is not a sword or an axe, but a humble fishhook, transformed by myth into one of the most powerful implements of creation ever imagined. Sail with us now to the heart of Polynesian mythology and the legendary deeds of the demigod Maui, whose great fishhook Manaiakalani gave him command over the very foundations of the earth and the passage of the sun itself. This was no ordinary hook. Stories vary across the many islands of Polynesia, from Hawaii to Aotearoa, New Zealand to Tahiti, but they agree on its divine nature. Some say it was fashioned from the jawbone of his grandmother, infusing it with the sacred power of his ancestors. Others tell of it being crafted from a magical stone or bone given to him by the gods themselves. Whatever its origin, Manaiakalani was a tool of immense potential, and Maui's use of it reveals a deep cultural worldview. His most famous feat, of course, was fishing up the islands. From his canoe, he cast the hook deep into the ocean depths, chanting powerful karakia or prayers as he did so. He felt a tremendous tug, and with all his strength, he began to pull not a fish, but vast, mountainous land from the watery abyss, creating the very islands that people call home to this day. This is more than a simple creation story. It is a myth encoded with generations of ancestral knowledge. For the Polynesian voyagers who navigated the greatest ocean on the planet using only the stars, the waves, and the flight of birds, the idea of pulling land from the sea reflects a hard-won understanding of the oceanic world. Seamounts and volcanic islands do indeed rise from the deep, and the myth poetically captures the moment of discovery, the incredible achievement of finding new homes in a seemingly endless ocean. It represents human ingenuity and perseverance, the ability to not just survive in a powerful natural world, but to actively partner with it to create something new and lasting. Yet Maui's ambition did not stop with the islands. In another incredible display of his power with Manaiakalani, he sought to slow the journey of the sun itself. In the myth, the days were too short for people to accomplish their work, so Maui used his hook to snare the sun's rays as it traveled across the sky. He didn't seek to destroy it, but to bargain with it, to force a new agreement that would bring balance to the human world. This act demonstrates a nuanced understanding of natural forces. It's not about domination, but about negotiation. It's about using cleverness and divine tools to achieve harmony and make the world more habitable for humanity. The demigod's actions are always framed within a system of respect. Even when he fishes up the land, many stories caution that he did not share the catch with his brothers, leading to the land being broken apart, a lesson about the importance of community and the dangers of arrogance when wielding such power. This is the true legacy of Manaiakalani. It is a weapon only in the sense that it is a tool for shaping reality. It represents a cultural ethos that sees humans as part of a vast, living cosmos, capable of great deeds but always subject to natural laws and spiritual responsibilities. Maui's hook teaches respect for the ocean that provides, the sun that gives life, and the land that supports us. It's a philosophy of environmental ethics born from a deep connection to the planet, a far cry from the storm-summoning weapons of wrath we've seen elsewhere. This profound relationship with the elements, however, finds a powerful and contrasting echo in the myths of another great civilization, one that looked not to the endless sea, but to the dramatic mountains and arid deserts of Mesoamerica. From the expansive, life-giving ocean of Polynesian myth, we journey inland to the highlands of ancient Mexico, where survival depended not on the sea but on the sky. Here, in the heart of the Aztec Empire, water was a precious and terrifying force, a deity that held the power of life and death in its hands. This was the domain of Tlaloc, one of the most complex and feared gods in the Mesoamerican pantheon. His weapon was not a hook for creation, but an axe for command, a lightning axe that perfectly captured the essential duality of nature in a land where the rainy season meant abundance and its failure meant famine. Tlaloc was far more than a simple rain god. He was the master of celestial waters, the ruler of thunderstorms, and the lord of fertility. He could send gentle rains to nourish the maize, beans, and squash that sustained the Aztec people, filling their vast network of chinampas or floating gardens with incredible bounty. But his benevolence had a sharp edge. That same power could manifest as devastating hurricanes, flash floods that wiped out entire villages, or worse, a prolonged and punishing drought that brought starvation and societal collapse. His weapon, often depicted in codices and sculptures as a fearsome axe with a handle shaped like a serpent, was the symbol of this volatile power. The serpent, a creature deeply associated with water and the earth in Mesoamerican belief, coiled around the axe, linking the sky-born lightning to the terrestrial world it would either bless or scourge. This duality was central to how the Aztecs understood their world. Theirs was an agricultural society living in a valley subject to dramatic seasonal shifts. The arrival of the annual rains was a time of both celebration and trepidation. Archaeological evidence, particularly from the Templo Mayor in the capital city of Tenochtitlan, reveals the profound depths of their reverence and fear. Tlaloc shared the summit of this great pyramid with Huitzilopochtli, the god of sun and war. This architectural statement placed the two fundamental forces of Aztec life side by side, the sun for victory and the rain for survival. In the shrines dedicated to Tlaloc, priests performed elaborate and often somber rituals designed to appease his volatile nature. These were not simple requests for rain, they were serious negotiations with a powerful and easily offended deity. Offerings of maize, jade, and rubber were common, but historical accounts and archaeological finds suggest that Tlaloc was also appeased with more solemn sacrifices. The god was believed to require tears, so priests would sometimes make children weep before rituals, their tears seen as a potent offering to encourage the rains to fall. This practice underscores the desperate earnestness of their pleas, a stark reminder of how directly their existence was tied to the whims of the weather. The lightning axe was not just a mythic weapon, it was a psychological and cultural reality, a constant reminder of the fine line between prosperity and destruction. Myths surrounding Tlaloc further illustrate this balance. One story tells of Tlalocan, his lush and paradisiacal earthly paradise, a place of eternal spring and abundance reserved for those who died in water-related deaths, a reward for those taken by the very force he controlled. Yet another aspect of his mythology reveals a darker side. Tlaloc had helpers, small dwarf-like beings called the Tlalocs, who were believed to break the rain jars held by their master with his lightning axe, causing the thunder and downpours. If one of these jars was shattered in anger, it could mean hail or a destructive storm. This personification of weather phenomena shows a sophisticated attempt to explain the unpredictability of nature, attributing its varying intensities to the moods and actions of divine beings. The legacy of Tlaloc's axe is a powerful lesson in cultural adaptation. It represents a society's profound engagement with its environment, an attempt to rationalize and influence the forces that dictated their survival. Unlike Maui's fishhook, which speaks to creation and exploration, Tlaloc's axe speaks to sustenance and anxiety. It is a symbol born from the necessity of agriculture, a constant dialogue with a capricious climate. This focus on a deity who wielded the elements with both generosity and wrath finds a fascinating parallel in the beliefs of another great civilization across the Atlantic, where a powerful god of justice also expressed his will through the violent beauty of thunder and lightning. The transition from the anxious prayers to Tlaloc in ancient Mexico leads us across the Atlantic to West Africa, where the roar of thunder carries a different meaning, one of royal authority and divine judgment. Here, in the rich spiritual landscape of the Yoruba people, we encounter Shango, a king who became a god, whose voice is the crash of thunder and whose weapon is the brilliant flash of lightning, embodied in his double-headed axe, the Osh. Unlike Tlaloc, whose power was primarily over the life-giving and terrifying aspects of rain, Shango's domain is the storm as an instrument of justice, a dramatic and public display of moral force. Shango's story is deeply human, which makes his divinity all the more powerful. He was once the fourth king of the ancient Oyo Empire, a charismatic and powerful ruler. Myths describe him as a figure of immense energy and passion, but his reign was also marked by conflict and a tragic downfall. One popular narrative tells of Shango experimenting with a powerful magic that caused him to accidentally destroy his own palace with lightning, leading to his exile and eventual transformation into an Orisha, a deity. This ascent from mortal king to immortal force of nature cemented his association with the ultimate power a ruler could wield, the power to punish wrongdoing and defend the innocent with unstoppable force. The double-headed axe, therefore, is not just a symbol of storms, it is a symbol of sovereignty. Its two edges represent the dual nature of Shango's power, the capacity for both destructive fury and righteous protection. The Osh is far more than a mythical artifact. It is a living symbol in Yoruba culture and its diasporic traditions, such as Santeria and Candomblé. In ceremonies dedicated to Shango, priests and devotees often carry ceremonial axes, dancing with a powerful, masculine energy that mirrors the god's own intensity. The dances are not meant to be fearful but celebratory and empowering, invoking Shango's strength, his commitment to truth, and his role as a protector of the community. The rhythmic beating of drums mimics the sound of thunder, building to a crescendo that represents the moment of lightning strike, a moment of clarity and judgment. This ritual practice shows how the weapon is a conduit for connecting with the god's essence, a way to channel his qualities of courage, leadership, and fairness. This connection between meteorological phenomena and moral order is central to understanding Shango. A sudden thunderstorm is not seen as a random act of nature, but as a manifestation of Shango's will. It might be a warning against social discord, a punishment for a hidden crime, or a cleansing of negative energies from the community. The lightning strike, in particular, is viewed as a direct and decisive act of divine justice. This belief system creates a world view where the natural environment is in constant dialogue with human morality, where the heavens themselves react to the actions of people on earth. It is a concept that fosters a sense of accountability and the belief that balance, both in society and in the cosmos, must be maintained. The enduring legacy of Shango and his axe demonstrates the powerful journey of a myth across time and space. From the royal courts of the Oyo Empire to the contemporary practices in the Americas, Shango remains a vibrant symbol of resilience and cultural identity. His story and the powerful symbol of the Osh teach a compelling lesson about power, its responsible use, and the inevitable connection between human justice and the forces of the natural world. This idea of a celestial being using weather as a tool of oversight finds a profound echo in the beliefs of indigenous cultures across another ocean, where a great spirit in the form of a mighty bird wields a spear of lightning, linking the sky, the earth, and the sacredness of life itself. The sky darkens not with the promise of judgment, but with the beating of immense wings, a sound that rolls across the plains and mountains like the coming of a great storm itself. In the rich tapestry of Native American mythology, few beings command as much awe and reverence as the Thunderbird, a majestic spirit whose very existence is intertwined with the forces of weather. This colossal bird, often described as large enough to block out the sun, does not merely fly through the sky, it is the sky, a living embodiment of atmospheric power. And its weapon, the lightning spear, is not a crafted object in the way a smith might forge one, but a manifestation of its divine will, a bolt of celestial energy hurled from its eyes or carried in its talons to split the clouds and shake the earth with thunder. This relationship between the Thunderbird and the people is deeply spiritual and ecological. For tribes like the Lakota, who know this being as Wakinyan, the arrival of thunderstorms is not a random meteorological event, but a necessary and sacred process. The lightning spear strikes the earth to cleanse it, to rejuvenate the soil and signal the change of seasons. The torrential rains that follow fill the rivers and water the crops, ensuring the survival of the community. In this context, the spear is a tool of life, a divine instrument of provision. The Thunderbird is seen as a powerful protector, a force that battles underwater serpents or monstrous beings that represent chaos and drought, using its lightning to maintain the balance of the natural world. The stories serve as a profound reminder that the most powerful forces are not there to be conquered, but to be respected as partners in the cycle of life. This respect is beautifully illustrated in the art and totem poles of Pacific Northwest nations like the Haida and Kwakwaka'wakwa. Here, the Thunderbird is a frequent and dominant figure, its image carved into towering poles that tell the stories of clans and their lineage. Often, it is depicted with a lightning snake grasped in its powerful claws, representing its control over the storm. These are not merely decorations, they are spiritual records, a way of honoring the force that brings the rains which fill the rivers with salmon, the foundational food source for the people. The spear, in this artistic tradition, is symbolized by the sharp, dynamic lines that represent lightning, a visual language connecting the community to the power that sustains them. It teaches that wisdom lies in understanding one's place within a larger system, not in attempting to dominate it. The narratives surrounding the Thunderbird and its lightning spear offer a unique perspective on power. Unlike the weapons of gods who might use them to punish mortals for moral failings, the Thunderbird's actions are often presented as part of a natural, albeit immense, order. Its destructive capacity is not about wrath, but about necessity, a reset for the environment. This worldview fosters a deep-seated ethic of conservation and respect for wildlife, as every creature is seen as part of this interconnected web. The stories passed down through generations are not just myths, they are the original environmental science, encoding observations about seasonal weather patterns, animal behavior, and the delicate balance of ecosystems. The lightning spear, therefore, is a symbol of ultimate natural law, a force that commands humility and reverence, concepts that would find a powerful echo in the ancient forests of Eastern Europe, where another thunder god wielded an axe to protect the cosmic order from chaos. From the vast skies of the Americas, we travel now to the ancient, deep forests of Eastern Europe, where the rumble of thunder was not seen as a distant force of nature, but as the clear voice of a powerful protector. In Slavic mythology, the supreme god of the sky and the wielder of the storm was Perun, a bearded, muscular deity whose chosen weapon was a mighty axe or sometimes a hammer. This was no ordinary tool. It was the very embodiment of the lightning bolt itself, a crackling, stone-headed weapon that he would hurl from the heavens to strike the earth with blinding light and earth-shattering sound. Where it landed, it was believed to bury itself deep, and these spots were considered sacred, often marked by the subsequent growth of a mighty oak tree, the tree most dear to Perun and a natural conductor of his divine power. Perun's role extended far beyond just creating dramatic weather. He was the ultimate defender of cosmic order, known as Pravda, against the relentless forces of chaos, falsehood, and drought, which were often personified by his eternal enemy, Veles. Veles was a shape-shifting god of the underworld, waters, and cattle, frequently taking the form of a great serpent or a dragon. Their epic battles were the mythological explanation for the storms that ravaged the land. Perun would chase Veles, who slithered up from the watery underworld, hurling his lightning axe to drive the chaotic serpent back into the depths. This conflict was a cycle, representing the struggle between the sky and the earth, the dry and the wet, and most importantly, the eternal triumph of order over chaos. The thunder was the sound of their clashing, and the rain that followed was a blessed gift, a life-giving result of Perun's victory that ensured the fertility of the soil and the prosperity of the people. This mythology was not just stories told around a fire. It was deeply woven into the spiritual and daily life of the ancient Slavic peoples. Small, amulet-style axes, known as poultry bogau or god's axes, have been found by archaeologists at numerous sites. These were not weapons for battle but powerful talismans, worn for protection. People believed that by wearing a symbol of Perun's axe, they could ward off the evil influences of Veles and other malicious spirits, ensuring health for their families and livestock. The axe was also central to rituals, especially wedding ceremonies, where it was placed on the threshold to block evil from entering the new home, or used to bless the union, much like Thor's hammer Mjolnir. It was a symbol of strength, sanctity, and divine favor. The arrival of Christianity in Slavic lands did not erase Perun, it transformed him. In a fascinating process known as syncretism, the attributes and stories of the powerful thunder god were gradually transferred to Christian figures, most notably the prophet Elijah. To this day, in many Slavic countries, the holiday of Iljan Dan or Saint Elijah's Day is associated with summer thunderstorms. It is said that the saint races his fiery chariot across the sky, and the rumbling is the sound of its wheels. The reverence for the oak tree persisted, and even the iconic axe found a new home in the imagery of Saint George, the dragon slayer, echoing Perun's ancient battle. This seamless blending of beliefs shows how deeply the archetype of the storm-wielding protector was ingrained in the cultural identity, a testament to Perun's enduring legacy that connects the celestial struggle above to the sacred ground below, a legacy born from a very different kind of desert. Leaving the damp, forested realms of European myth, we now cross into a landscape of blazing sun and shifting sands, where the forces of nature wear a far more unforgiving face. In the vast and awe-inspiring pantheon of ancient Egypt, few figures are as complex and misunderstood as the god Set. Often mistakenly simplified as a god of pure evil, Set's domain was actually the brutal yet necessary chaos of the desert, the violent storms that roared across the land, and the untamable forces that existed beyond the fertile, life-giving banks of the Nile. His chosen instrument, a long and enigmatic staff or scepter known as the Was Scepter, was the ultimate symbol of this raw, elemental power, a weapon that could summon the very essence of the arid wilderness he commanded. Unlike the clearly defined, animal-headed gods of Egypt, Set's own form was a mysterious blend, a creature the Egyptians called the Set animal, with a curved snout, forked tail, and square-tipped ears, an imagined being that embodied the strange and dangerous creatures of the desert. His staff mirrored this otherworldly nature. It was typically depicted with a stylized animal head at the top, often that of the Set animal or a canine-like creature, and a forked base. This was not a weapon for precise combat, but a tool for channeling immense chaotic energy. With it, Set could command the fierce desert winds to whip into blinding, flesh-stripping sandstorms, powerful enough to erase entire paths and bury monuments. He could summon violent thunderstorms that brought not nurturing rain, but destructive lightning and terrifying booms that echoed through the valleys. This power represented a fundamental truth of the Egyptian world, the understanding that the delicate ribbon of life along the Nile was perpetually balanced on the edge of a much larger, hostile, and chaotic environment. The desert was not just empty space, it was an active, menacing force, and Set was its master. This role is perfectly illustrated in the most famous myth surrounding him, his legendary conflict with his brother Osiris. In this story, Set, representing the destructive forces of drought and sterility, murders the fertile, life-giving Osiris and scatters his parts. This act is not merely a family betrayal, it is a cosmological event, a mythological explanation for the annual drying of the land and the retreat of the Nile's life-giving waters. However, the story does not end there. Osiris is resurrected through the magic of his wife Isis and becomes the ruler of the underworld, while his son Horus eventually defeats Set to reclaim the throne. But even in defeat, Set was not destroyed or banished to some underworld prison. The gods recognized that his power, though dangerous, was a vital part of the natural order. He was given a place in the solar bark of the sun god Ra, where he used his storm-wielding power to defend the sun from the serpent of chaos, Apep, each night. This dual role is the key to understanding Set and his staff. He was a necessary counterbalance, a god of turmoil who was also a protector, embodying the harsh realities that make peace and fertility so precious. His staff, therefore, symbolizes not just mindless destruction, but the difficult, chaotic, and often violent processes that are sometimes required to clear the way for renewal and to maintain the balance of the world, a concept that finds a fascinating echo in a very different tradition across the globe. From the arid chaos of the Egyptian desert, we travel now to a world where divine power is not wielded through chaotic force alone, but is instead administered through a vast and orderly celestial government. In the rich tapestry of Chinese mythology, the awesome and terrifying phenomena of thunderstorms were not random acts of nature. They were the deliberate work of a divine official carrying out his duties, and his weapon of choice was not a blade or an axe, but a powerful instrument of sound. Meet Gong, the god of thunder, whose mighty drum beats were the heralds of coming storms and the instruments of heavenly justice. Gong is a formidable figure, often depicted as a fearsome, muscular deity with the face of a bird, bat-like wings and claws. He wears armor and carries a suite of tools, the most important being his drum and a mallet or chisel to strike it. He does not act on a personal whim or a fit of rage. Instead, he operates as a vital part of a complex spiritual bureaucracy, a heavenly ministry where every god has a specific role and jurisdiction. When the celestial court identifies a moral transgression down on earth, whether it is a grave act of dishonesty, a crime against one's family, or a breach of social harmony, an order is issued. Gong is then dispatched to exact punishment. The rolling boom of his drum is the sound of that verdict being delivered, and the accompanying lightning bolts are his precise and unforgetting strikes against the guilty. This system reflects a core tenet of Chinese philosophical thought, the idea that the natural world and the moral order are completely intertwined. A severe storm was not merely bad weather, it was a public demonstration that the cosmic balance had been upset and was now being corrected. This mythos became deeply integrated into Taoist religious practices. Temples featured statues of Gong, and people would make offerings to appease him or to seek his protection from lightning strikes. Folk beliefs held that those struck by lightning were being punished for hidden sins, a concept that served as a powerful social deterrent. Gong rarely worked alone. He was often shown collaborating with other weather deities like Dian Mu, the goddess of lightning, who used mirrors to flash light across the sky, and Yun Tong, the cloud boy, who would muster the rain-bearing clouds. This divine teamwork illustrates a sophisticated personification of a storm's component parts, showing an ancient attempt to understand the science behind the spectacle through narrative. The thunder drum itself is a fascinating symbol. As an instrument, it represents the power of sound and vibration to affect the world, a primal concept found in many cultures. In Gong's hands, it becomes a tool of immense authority, its sound echoing the mandate of heaven itself. This idea of a storm god serving a larger system of order provides a perfect bridge to return to the myths of the North, but to a very different kind of divine power, one not of bureaucracy, but of fertile journeys and favorable winds. From the structured celestial bureaucracy of ancient China, we sail now to the rugged fjords and open seas of the Norse world, where a different kind of magical artifact embodies a profound relationship with nature. This is not a weapon of thunderous punishment, but a vessel of benevolent passage. It belongs to Frey, the god of fertility, peace, and prosperity, and its name is Skidbladnir. Crafted by the incomparable dwarf brothers, the sons of Ivaldi, this ship represents a pinnacle of mythological ingenuity. Its most enchanting quality is its impossible portability. Despite being large enough to carry all the gods of Asgard with their equipment, Skidbladnir could be folded up like a simple piece of cloth and tucked into a pouch or a pocket. But its greater, more vital magic was its relationship with the wind. Whenever its sails were raised, Skidbladnir would always find a favorable breeze, ensuring a swift, safe, and direct journey to any destination. This miraculous ship is far more than a convenient mode of transport. It is a powerful symbol of harmony and control over the natural elements, specifically tailored to the needs of Norse culture. The Vikings were a seafaring people whose survival, expansion, and prosperity were utterly dependent on the ocean. They understood the sea's dual nature. It was a highway to new lands, trade, and adventure, but it was also a terrifying, unpredictable force that could shatter longships and drown even the most experienced sailors. Skidbladnir represents the ideal outcome of that relationship. It is the perfect vessel that conquers the sea's dangers not through violent domination, but through an almost intelligent cooperation with the wind and waves. It always finds the good wind. This concept reflects a deep desire for predictability and safety in an inherently unpredictable environment. It symbolizes the hope for a journey where nature is not an adversary to be battled, but an ally that guides you home. As the property of Frey, a god associated with abundant harvests and peace, Skidbladnir further emphasizes this theme of beneficial travel. It is not a warship like those used by the Valkyries or other gods, but a vessel for community, commerce, and connection. Its magic ensures prosperity by guaranteeing that trade routes remain open, that explorers can find new fertile lands, and that the gods themselves can move through the world to bestow their blessings. Historians see in Skidbladnir a direct reflection of the Viking spirit. Its craftsmanship by dwarves highlights the Norse reverence for superior skill and artistry, while its purpose underscores their existential reliance on maritime technology. This ship is a mythic amplification of the very real longships that allowed the Norse to navigate across vast oceans. It is the perfect, divine version of the tools that shaped their civilization, embodying not a command to destroy, but a prayer for safe passage and the promise of prosperity on the other side of the horizon. After a ship that masters the sea through harmony, we encounter a creature for whom the ocean is a domain of cosmic terror. Leaving behind the cooperative winds of the Norse god Frey's enchanted ship, we journey to the vibrant archipelago of the Philippines, where the sea holds a far more menacing secret. Here, the ocean is not a pathway to prosperity, but the domain of a colossal cosmic serpent known as the Bakunawa. This mighty dragon, often depicted as a massive sea serpent with a mouth the size of a lake, embodies the raw, untamable chaos of nature itself. Its most feared power was its influence over the heavens. Ancient stories tell that the Bakunawa would rise from the depths of the sea to devour the moon, causing a lunar eclipse and plunging the world into darkness. The frantic flailing of its powerful tail as it fought to consume the celestial body was said to churn the ocean into violent storms and tempests, threatening coastal communities with towering waves. The Bakunawa was not merely a monster, it represented a fundamental disruption of the natural order, a periodic battle between the cosmic serpent and the moon that played out in the sky and sea for all to witness. The myth of the Bakunawa serves as a brilliant example of pre-colonial astronomical observation encoded into a dramatic, unforgettable story. Long before modern science explained the mechanics of an eclipse, people across the Philippines observed this regular yet terrifying celestial event. The myth provided a compelling narrative to explain why the moon would suddenly vanish and the weather would often turn foul. The Bakunawa became the personification of that mystery and fear. But the story does not end with helpless terror. It introduces a solution that reinforces community and cultural values. According to the most common version of the legend, the people would rush from their homes during an eclipse, making as much noise as humanly possible. They would bang on pots and pans, shout, and play loud instruments. This cacophony was not random panic. It was a coordinated ritual designed to startle the Bakunawa, making it release the moon and retreat back into the ocean, thus restoring light and calm to the world. This community-wide response transforms the myth from a simple monster tale into a lesson about collective action and respect for natural cycles. The Bakunawa's attack was not something a single hero could always prevent. It required the entire community to come together, each person contributing to the collective noise that would save the moon. The myth taught that order could be restored not through a single act of violent conquest, but through unified, purposeful human effort. Furthermore, the story carries a profound environmental warning. Some variations suggest the Bakunawa was originally a beautiful goddess or a neutral spirit that was transformed into a monster due to human greed or disrespect for the natural world. This aspect frames the serpent's attacks not as mindless evil, but as a consequence of imbalance, a cosmic correction for humanity's hubris. The Bakunawa's serpentine tail, therefore, is a weapon of nature itself. It is a tool of chaos that serves to remind humanity of its place within a larger, more powerful cosmic system, where celestial events and earthly weather are intimately connected. This powerful symbol of a struggle against cosmic disorder prepares us to explore a myth from a very different frozen landscape, where survival depends on a delicate pact with a powerful sea goddess. From the warm, turbulent waters of the Philippines, we now travel to the vast, frozen expanse of the Arctic, where survival hinges on a profound and respectful relationship with the sea. Here, the myth of the sea goddess Sedna presents a weapon not of conquest, but of consequence, a simple harpoon that represents the most critical pact between humanity and nature. Sedna is not a distant, indifferent deity. She is the mother of the sea, the ultimate source of all marine life, and her mood directly controls the fate of the Inuit people. When she is content, she releases seals, whales, and fish, ensuring abundance and survival for the hunters and their communities. But when she is angered, she withholds the animals and summons fierce storms, trapping people in a lifeless, frozen world. The harpoon, the essential tool of the Inuit hunter, becomes the symbolic instrument through which this relationship is defined, a reminder that every action in the hunt has a spiritual echo. The most powerful story of Sedna's origin explains the source of her power and her enduring anger. In one common version, Sedna was a young woman who was cast into the ocean by her father during a violent storm. As she clung desperately to the side of the kayak, her father, fearing for his own life, used his harpoon to chop off her fingers one by one until she sank into the depths. It is from this profound betrayal and trauma that Sedna's divinity was born. Her severed fingers transformed into the seals, walruses, and whales, the very creatures the Inuit depend on for survival. She herself became the powerful, often sorrowful, goddess who rules the marine realm from the bottom of the sea. This harrowing tale establishes the harpoon not just as a tool for hunting, but as a symbol of the original transgression, the moment humanity violated its trust with the natural world and created a deity who must now be constantly appeased. This mythology translates into a sophisticated system of ecological ethics that governs daily life. Hunters observe strict taboos and perform rituals to show respect for Sedna and the animals she provides. Wasting any part of a catch or showing arrogance in a successful hunt is considered a direct insult to the goddess. If these taboos are broken, it is believed that Sedna's hair, which she cannot comb herself because she lost her fingers, becomes tangled with the souls of the animals, trapping them in her underwater domain. The community then faces starvation and violent weather. To restore balance, a shaman must undertake a dangerous spiritual journey to the seafloor. There, he or she would gently comb Sedna's hair, calming her anger and freeing the animal souls so they may once again offer themselves to the hunters. This entire cycle, triggered by human action and corrected through spiritual intervention, frames environmental stewardship as a sacred duty. The harpoon, in this context, is a weapon of immense responsibility. Its successful use brings life, but its misuse or the disrespect that can follow brings devastation, teaching that true power lies not in domination, but in reverence and reciprocity. This deep, intrinsic connection between human action and environmental consequence, embodied by Sedna's harpoon, guides us to a creation myth from a sun-scorched continent, where a different kind of serpentine power shaped the world itself. From the icy, consequential waters governed by Sedna, we venture now into a land of ancient, sun-baked earth and vibrant life, where creation itself is woven into the very fabric of the continent. In the Dreamtime stories of Aboriginal Australian cultures, the world was not simply made, it was sung and shaped into being by ancestral beings, and among the most powerful of these is the rainbow serpent. This immense serpentine creator is often described as carrying a powerful crystal or a ceremonial staff, an artifact of pure creative energy that it used to sculpt the world as we know it. With this tool, the rainbow serpent did not conquer nature, it became nature, carving out riverbeds as it moved across the featureless plain, filling them with water from its own body, and raising up mountain ranges with the powerful undulations of its back. The storms that water the land are said to be born from its breath, and the rainbow that appears afterward is the serpent itself, bridging the earth and the sky in a dazzling arc of color, a permanent reminder of its presence and power. This mythic weapon, the crystal or staff, is fundamentally different from the hammers and tridents we have explored. It is not an instrument of war or even of authority over nature in a controlling sense. Instead, it is a literal embodiment of creation and spiritual law. The rainbow serpent's actions during the Dreamtime established not only the physical landscape but also the sacred sites, the laws of social conduct, and the intricate relationships between all living things. The weapon is a symbol of this profound interconnection. When the rainbow serpent passes through the land, it leaves behind a trail of life, but its power also carries a severe warning. In many stories, the serpent is a protector of these sacred places and the natural order. Those who disrespect the land, who break the laws it established, or who trespass on forbidden grounds may face its wrath, which can manifest as terrible storms, floods, or other natural disruptions. This duality as both life-giver and destroyer underscores a core principle found in many indigenous worldviews, that the environment is not a resource to be exploited, but a relative to be respected, a living entity with its own consciousness and agency. The enduring power of the rainbow serpent myth is evident in how it continues to guide the environmental practices and cultural identity of Aboriginal peoples today. The stories are not mere fables from a distant past. They are active, living narratives that inform land management, artistic expression, and community cohesion. Elders read the landscape as a text written by the rainbow serpent, where a waterhole is not just a source of water but a sacred resting place of the Creator, and a rock formation is not just geology but the frozen form of an ancestral being. This perspective fosters a deep, sustainable relationship with the environment, one built on reverence and responsibility rather than dominance. The rainbow serpent's crystal, therefore, is perhaps the ultimate mythic weapon, because its power is not about commanding the forces of nature from the outside, but about embodying them from within, reminding us that we are not separate from the natural world, but an integral part of its continuing story. This concept of a weapon as a symbol of cosmic interconnection and creative force perfectly sets the stage for our final exploration, where we will see how these ancient ideas have fragmented, blended, and evolved in the modern world. This journey through myth and legend reveals a fascinating pattern, a shared human impulse to understand the immense, untamable power of nature by giving it a name and a tool. But what happens when these ancient stories travel, when cultures meet and merge, weaving together threads from different traditions to create something entirely new? Our final mythic weapon is not a single object from a single time or place, but a vibrant category of modern and syncretic artifacts, talismans, and symbols born from the fusion of global beliefs. These are the storm-raising amulets crafted in folk magic, the ritual tools used in contemporary pagan ceremonies, and the powerful symbols incorporated into cultural festivals that honor the elements. They represent humanity's enduring, creative desire to find a place within the natural world, not through brute force, but through symbolic connection and respect. Consider the rich traditions of the Caribbean, where the harsh realities of history forced the blending of African, indigenous Taino, and European Catholic beliefs into powerful new systems of spirituality. In Haitian Vodou, for instance, the LWA, or spirits, are often petitioned for their influence over the natural world. A practitioner might create a specific pouch, an amulet filled with herbs, stones, and other symbolic items, to honor a spirit like the fierce marine deity Agwe who commands the seas. This talisman is a syncretic artifact, its purpose echoing Poseidon's dominion over the oceans, its form and ritual influenced by West African traditions, and its symbolism sometimes intertwined with Catholic saints. It is not a weapon of conquest, but a focused tool for communication, a means of respectfully asking for calm waters for a safe voyage or for life-giving rains during a drought. This evolution shows how the core idea of influencing weather adapts to new environments and cultural landscapes, preserving ancient intentions through new forms. This creative adaptation continues today in various neo-pagan and modern spiritual movements. Many contemporary practitioners draw upon a wide library of global mythology, crafting rituals and tools that resonate with their personal connection to nature. A ceremonial knife or athame might be used to cast a circle by calling upon the four winds, invoking concepts from European folklore. A crystal, chosen for its perceived properties, might be placed on an altar as an offering to a deity of storms, blending geological science with symbolic myth. A group might gather to drum in rhythm, mimicking the sound of thunder in a ritual to honor Thor or Perun, not to command a storm, but to align themselves with its raw, cleansing energy. These practices are less about controlling the weather and more about participating in it, using these modern talismans and actions to foster a deeper psychological and spiritual relationship with the environmental forces that surround us. They are a testament to the living, breathing nature of mythology, proving that these ancient stories are not relics but active guides, constantly being reinterpreted to help us navigate our place in the world. From the community festivals in Japan that celebrate the wind gods to the rain dances that persist in various forms across cultures, these syncretic expressions show that the mythic weapon has evolved from an object of divine right into a symbol of communal hope and ecological awareness. We no longer believe a single hammer can summon a lightning bolt, but we still gather to acknowledge the power of the storm. We still feel that primal urge to mark the changing seasons, to ask for rain, to seek protection from the gale. These modern talismans and traditions are the legacy of Mjolnir and the Trident, not in their literal power but in their profound meaning. They represent our timeless need to look at the crashing waves, the gathering clouds, or the clear sky and feel a sense of connection, to see not just random weather patterns, but a story in which we too have a role to play. This ongoing dialogue between humanity and the elements, mediated through these ever-evolving symbols, brings our exploration full circle, offering a perfect gateway to reflect on the universal patterns that bind all these incredible stories together. Looking back across these 20 mythic weapons, from the frozen Arctic to the tropical Pacific, a set of profound and universal patterns begins to emerge, revealing a shared human response to the awesome and often frightening power of the natural world. One of the most consistent themes woven through these stories is the inherent duality of nature itself, the understanding that the same force that gives life can also take it away. Consider the mighty Mjolnir, a hammer that could shatter mountains in defense of Asgard, yet was also gently laid upon a bride's lap to bless a marriage and ensure fertility. This echoes perfectly in the Aztec Tlaloc's lightning axe, an instrument that brought the life-giving rains so crucial for crops, but could also withhold that water to unleash drought and famine as a form of divine punishment. These artifacts are never simply tools of mindless destruction. They embody a deep cultural recognition that creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin, that a storm both waters the fields and floods them, and that true power lies in understanding and respecting this essential balance. This leads directly to another universal thread, the powerful link these myths create between morality and the environment. In countless stories, the weather is not a random occurrence but a direct reflection of cosmic justice or communal ethics. The Hindu god Varuna used his noose not just to command the monsoons but to bind those who broke divine law, directly tying rainfall to righteousness. In Chinese mythology, Gong's thunder drum was not beaten at random. Its crashing peals were a targeted punishment for mortals who had strayed from the path of virtue. Even Shango's double-headed axe in Yoruba belief was a tool of fiery retribution against wrongdoers. For societies deeply dependent on the predictability of seasons and the mercy of the elements, these stories provided a framework for understanding why hardship occurred. A drought or a devastating hurricane could be interpreted as a consequence of human action, a collective moral failure that required atonement. This personification of natural forces into divine beings with discernment and will made the unpredictable manageable, transforming terrifying phenomena into a language of cause and effect that communities could comprehend and through ritual hope to influence. And that act of personification is perhaps the most fundamental pattern of all. Faced with the immense, impersonal forces of typhoons, earthquakes, and blizzards, ancient cultures everywhere engaged in the same profound act of storytelling. They gave these forces a face, a name, and a tool. The rolling thunder was not just a sound, it was the chariot of Thor crossing the sky or the mighty hammer of Perun striking the clouds. The treacherous sea was not just water, it was the domain of Poseidon, whose trident could stir it into a frenzy or calm it to a glassy plain. By crafting these narratives and artifacts, humanity was attempting to build a relationship with the environment. You cannot plead with a hurricane, but you can pray to a god. You cannot reason with a drought, but you can make an offering to a goddess like Sedna. These mythic weapons became the focal points of that relationship, the symbolic instruments through which communication, respect, and even negotiation with nature could be performed. They represent our ancestors' brave and creative attempt to bring the vast, uncontrollable cosmos down to a human scale, to a story they could tell around a fire, a ritual they could perform to feel a sense of agency in a world full of powerful uncertainties. It is no coincidence that these myths flourished in societies built upon agriculture or seafaring, where survival was intimately and immediately tied to the whims of the weather. The consistency of these patterns across the globe, with no evidence of cultural contact, points to a shared human experience. From the Viking longships navigating the North Atlantic to the rice farmers tending their paddies in Japan, the need to understand the wind and the rain was a universal constant. These stories were not mere entertainment. They were the foundational texts of their time, encoding observational science, ecological wisdom, and survival strategies into a memorable and compelling narrative form. They taught respect for the ocean, the value of storing water, the signs of an approaching storm, and the importance of community cooperation in the face of natural hardship. This brings a powerful relevance to our modern era. As we now grapple with the global challenge of climate change, these ancient myths offer us a forgotten wisdom. They remind us that we are not separate from nature but fundamentally entangled with it. The stories of Thor and Tlaloc and Sedna urge a posture of humility and respect, a recognition that our actions have consequences in the natural world. Our ancestors may have personified the storm as a god's anger, but we now understand the science behind carbon emissions and global warming, yet the underlying message remains strikingly similar. We must live in balance with the forces we depend on. These 20 mythic weapons, therefore, are far more than curious relics of the past. They are timeless mirrors reflecting our enduring struggle to find our place within a powerful and majestic natural world, a conversation that began millennia ago and continues with even greater urgency today. From the thunderous echoes of Mjolnir shaking the skies of Asgard to the silent, crystalline power of the rainbow serpent carving rivers across the Australian continent, our journey through these 20 mythic weapons has been a voyage across the human soul. We have seen how every culture, in its own unique voice, has crafted stories to give shape to the awesome and unpredictable forces of nature. These artifacts are far more than simple tools of divine power. They are profound reflections of our deepest hopes, our most primal fears, and our enduring desire to find our place within a world that is both majestic and terrifying. Each hammer, trident, and talisman offers a window into the values of the society that created it, showing us what they revered, what they sought to control, and the delicate balance they knew was necessary for survival. Ultimately, these myths are not about dominating nature, but about understanding our relationship to it. They teach a timeless lesson in humility, reminding us that true strength lies not in unchecked force, but in wisdom, respect, and the recognition that we are part of a system far greater than ourselves. We would love to hear which of these legendary artifacts resonated most with you. Was it the classic might of Zeus's Thunderbolt, or perhaps the elegant symbolism of Varuna's Noose? Share your favorite myth or your own thoughts on what these stories mean in the comments below. Your insights help build a wonderful community of fellow explorers. If you are hungry for more deep dives into the mysteries of history and mythology, be sure to check out the playlist linked on the screen for further adventures. And if you have not already, subscribing and ringing the bell is the best way to ensure you never miss our next journey into the unknown. It seems fitting to conclude with a thought from the great mythologist Joseph Campbell, who once said, "Myth is the secret opening through which the inexhaustible energies of the cosmos pour into human cultural manifestation." These stories of storm-raising weapons are precisely that, a channel for our endless fascination with the cosmos, a way to give meaning to the wind and the waves. They are a testament to the enduring power of storytelling itself, our most ancient and powerful tool for making sense of the world. Thank you for joining us on this epic exploration. Until next time, keep wondering.